Welcome to The Kitchen Chemist. I'm your boy, amateur pro home chef Nathaniel Levinson. Today, we're going to be making a very simple appetizer salad thingy. It's called the Caprese Salad. It's a classic Italian fare. It's very simple. There's three main ingredients: tomato, basil, and mozzarella cheese. If you can get a garden fresh tomato, I recommend you use those. If you can't, the next best thing are going to be smaller tomatoes. So these are some cherry tomatoes, some grape tomatoes. I've got a couple different varieties here. These are smaller and they've got a little bit more sweetness. If you're not growing your own, or you don't have a neighbor who owes you that are growing their own, check at the farmer's market. Try to find a tomato supplier. This is a beefsteak tomato. It's the most common variety that you're going to find. Although it looks nice and red and plump and juicy, it has no depth of flavor. So you taste it, it tastes kind of like a watered down tomato, because it is. When tomatoes are ripe, they are very hard to ship. They go bad very quickly. So in order to ship tomatoes across the nation, they pick them while they're green and unripe, and then they hit them with something called ethylene gas, which is, and this is not just tomatoes, this is a lot of fruit. They hit them with something called ethylene gas, which encourages fruits to ripen. The problem is, if it's not connected to the stem, it's not getting nutrients, and so it's not going to develop the sugars and other things that it would develop if it was on the vine. So since we're using small tomatoes, if you were using a larger tomato, you'd want to cut it into maybe 1-inch pieces, and you might want to take the pulp out, because the pulp can be a little watery. But since we're using small tomatoes, we're just going to cut them in half. And when you're cutting tomatoes, be careful and make sure your knife is very sharp, because these tomatoes have kind of a rubbery skin. It's very easy for your knife to just slip right off of it. So what I do is I pinch it like this, put the knife between, and just slice down. I find that's the safest way to cut tomatoes, because they can roll away on you, and always use a sharp knife or you're liable to hurt yourself. So now that you have chopped your tomatoes and put them in your handy dandy bowl, you're going to want to add some basil. Now the amount of basil you add is up to you. I love basil, so I'm going to add a lot. Basil is an herbaceous plant. You can grow it yourself. You can buy it pretty much year-round. It's one of my favorite herbs. You can just kind of chop these up however you want to, but I'm going to show you a little trick, a little fancy trick to make fancy basil. So what you want to do is you want to find your largest leaf and just lay it down flat. Then find your next largest leaf, lay it down on top of that, and just do that until you build up a nice stack. Now, you want to roll it up tight to a nice little cylinder of basil. Then, we're going to cut off this end here, because it's got stems. We're going to make very thin slices. This is called a chiffonade. So now when we unroll them, we've got these nice ribbons of basil. So we're just going to throw that into our pot. The last thing you're going to need is mozzarella cheese. Don't buy the shredded stuff. Get a whole chunk of mozzarella cheese, or make your own if you're so inclined. Maybe we'll do that at some point. We're just going to slice it into cubes. It's a chewy, creamy cheese. It's not going to bring a whole lot of flavor, but it brings a nice sensation and nice texture to the party. And as with the basil, you add as much as you want. So now that you've got everything in your bowl, it's time for the final touches. You're going to need some olive oil. Just drizzle a little bit in there. You're going to need some fresh ground black pepper. And you're going to need your kosher salt. So just a couple hefty pinches. And remember, you can always add more. You can never take it away. So go light on the seasoning, mix it, taste it, and then decide if you need more. Then you just want to mix everything together. Now, one of the beautiful things about this is, if you let it sit in the refrigerator for a little bit, all those flavors will meld together into harmony. So this actually tastes just as good, if not better, the next day. Most caprese salads are served with balsamic vinegar. Balsamic vinegar is made by boiling down grape must until it's really sticky. Then they put it in a barrel to age, and then they age it for at least 12 years, and they put in smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller barrels as the water evaporates. Then they end up with this teeny tiny barrel of really, really good balsamic vinegar, and it's really expensive. So this is what's called balsamic vinegar of Modena, which is similar in flavor profile, but not as rich, not as good, because they kind of cheat to get this flavor. If you can get your hands on real balsamic, go for it, and send us some. But this stuff will do in a pinch. So this is balsamic vinegar. It's sweet and tangy. It's really delicious. I like balsamic vinegar on my caprese salad, but I usually let guests put their own on. So I'm going to leave this as it is, and then when I serve myself, I will drizzle on some balsamic vinegar. Here it is, a fresh, delicious caprese salad. Let's get into this bad boy. I, of course, will use the balsamic. Mm. Mm. Creaminess from the mozzarella, sweetness from the tomatoes, that herbaceous basil just runs through the whole thing, and then a little bit of tangy bite from the balsamic. This is fantastic. Until next time, I'm your boy, amateur pro home chef Nathaniel Levinson. Keep eating good.